I think one thing all of us as World of Tankers can agree on is that Wargaming does a very poor job on balancing vehicles. We've seen examples like the Tiger II down at Tier 8, which was already a very strong vehicle, and then for some reason in Update 8.1, Wargaming said, yes, let's make its DPM go up and not nerf it. It was already strong, one of the top performing Tier 8s, and now it's even stronger. It's probably one of the best Tier 8s in the game. And at Tier 10, we've seen vehicles like the 215B and T110E5 nerfed, in quote-unquote making it more medium meta, and then Wargaming releases the 60 TP, and they release the Concept 1B, and then we got the Type 71 in testing. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I always feel like Wargaming is a very loose cannon when it comes to balancing vehicles in Tier 10, Tier 9, Tier 8. And in today's video, I thought, why don't I list the changes I would make to the Tier 10 class as a whole, and the vehicles individually in the game. So if you enjoyed today's video, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, as this is going to be quite a long video. The second note I want to say is that not everybody is going to agree with what I say. So let me know what you guys disagree with in the comments down below. Obviously, there are some changes that you won't like, so let me know. But also keep in mind that this won't be happening, so don't take this personally or anything. This is just what I personally feel should happen to the Tier 10s in the game, but I'm just one person, and many of you have different opinions, so I'd like to hear them in the comments. Let me know what you would change differently or leave exactly the same. So, starting off, as Tier 10 as a whole, I would nerf every tank's DPM equally of about 15% or 10%. I feel right now that damage per minute is a bit too high as a class in the game. Heavy tanks that are released into the game have to keep getting new consumables or equipment that makes it stronger and stronger, more DPM centered for mediums. Vehicles like the Leopard 1 5 years ago had 3200, 3300 DPM. Nowadays it has 3600. The Patton just got a DPM buff. The E50M got a DPM buff, and I wouldn't be surprised if other lesser DPM vehicles start getting more buffs in Tier 10. I really think that Wargaming needs to just nerf all the vehicles by a flat number, making the game seem a bit more slow-paced so the battles don't last 1 minute and 30 seconds. I would really like to see the games last a little bit longer, and it to be a bit more oriented towards what you do in that time while you're reloading. It wouldn't make a huge difference, and obviously every tank would be nerfed equally. That's just something I've always felt about the game, is that Wargaming keeps on buffing vehicles, which makes older ones seem more power creeped, and if you nerfed everything by 15% margin, it would make the game seem a little bit slower, which it would have been like maybe 4 years ago. But starting off, let's go to the Sheridan. I'm just gonna pick the vehicles as we go down the list, talk about which ones I think need changes, which should stay the same, and everything like that. Now, the Sheridan, I have 2 changes for. First of all, give it the M48 patent gun. For any of you that are not really following World of Tanks PC, when the Sheridan was released into the game, it had 2 gun options. It had the derp gun from the T49, just brought up 2 tiers, and it had the M48 patent gun, which is pretty sweet. I mean, it had a little bit worse accuracy and I think worse DPM, but it's a medium gun on a light tank. It's kind of like a Vickers Light, just a Sheridan with an M48 patent gun. And I think that would be really fun, because there are people out there that don't love the derp gun on the Sheridan, and they want a mobile tank with a really accurate gun, good DPM, and I think that would bring a lot more people down this line to enjoy the other opportunity of a more accurate mobile light tank, kind of like the Vickers. So that would be really fun. But as well, I think the 49 gun should be placed on the Sheridan like it is on PC as well. I think you should have the option of a very high damage derp gun or an accurate gun, because that would make it both parallels. Now, the 49 gun, it's literally just the 49 penetration, maybe a bit more on the heat to make it reliable against Tier 10s on the sides and the rear, but the HE is exactly the same as the Tier 8. It's got the same damage at 780 per shot, which means you can get some big ol' slaps out, and that's really all it would be. You just spam HE at opponents you can't pen frontally, and you come up behind them and completely slap them for 780 in the rear instead of the 680 it has at Tier 10. I would really, really like to see that done in Blitz, but you never know. Either way, that would be the changes I would make to the Sheridan. The M48 patent, I actually wouldn't change at all. As you guys saw in yesterday's video, I think it's a great tank. It's got a great gun, really good DPM, accuracy, it's mobile. Maybe make it go 50 kilometers per hour, but apart from that, there's really nothing I would change, and that's exactly the same for the M60, as they are basically the exact same vehicle. The T57 Heavy is a vehicle I would change. Right now, the 57 Heavy is one of the strongest Tier 10s in the game, and it gets away with some of the dumbest stuff on the planet because of what wargaming has done to it. First of all, the lower plate needs to be weaker. The fact that you cannot penetrate the lower plate with even 340 millimeters of heat pen makes no sense whatsoever. The T100 is supposed to be a heavily armored vehicle, not the 57 Heavy. This is supposed to be trading armor for a clip. So first of all, nerf the lower plate, put it back to what it was, because it makes it a lot easier to deal with. Second of all, make the turret less troll. There's a very big difference between troll armor and effective armor. The 57 Heavy has a really troll turret, and you just get unlucky bounces sometimes on this vehicle that can really screw you over. Imagine being in a 60 TP or an E100 and you have less DPM than the 57 Heavy. You aim at the turret, you hit that little red line on it on the cheek, and it bounces right off, and because of that you lose 1200 health and die. I don't think that should be a thing. If you aim at the right spot of a 57 Heavy, you should pen it. So get rid of the little troll angles on the 57 turret that are red lines. Make it pennable if you want to leave the lower plate strong, or just make the lower plate weak so when it exposes its armor, you can actually pen it somewhere apart from the turret, which is incredibly troll, but that's how I personally feel. I think the gun should stay the same. Everything about the 57 should stay the same. Maybe give it a bit more ammunition, because I do find it quite comfortably running out of ammo every now or then. Concept 1B, I would leave the same. The reason why is because this is a collector, and people will get very mad if Wargaming nerfs a collector, as they spent money on it, even though it definitely should be nerfed. What would I nerf on it if I was able to and people wouldn't get mad? Well, I would nerf the armor. I would first of all nerf its turret armor a bit. I would make sure that it has weak spots on the roof. This little white thing there, that nub that sticks up, make that actually penetrable. On PC, that's a weak spot. In Blitz, it's not. So first of all, make that a weak spot. Second of all, get rid of these stupid feathers on the camo so you can actually see it. And that's all I would really change. It just needs some sort of weak spot when it works hull down, which it doesn't have right now. And yeah, that's what I would put on the Concept 1B. The M6 Yoh, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with what I'm going to say on this vehicle, but there's two changes I would make. First of all, the 3-shot gun, get rid of it. The 3-shot gun is amazing. Yes, it's the main used gun in comp. It's a very deadly tank because of that, but the 3-shot gun, get it out of here and put the 2-shot gun as the only gun on the tank. But make the 2-shot gun's injure clip 3.5 seconds like the Kranvong. Keep the alpha the same, make the penetration a bit better like the 2-shot, and then buff its DPM. So if you make the intra clip obviously longer, then that would mean the DPM would go down. But give it like 2600 or even 2700 DPM, I think that would be fine. I think it's just the fact that this vehicle having 3000 DPM makes it like a 57 Heavy, but actually reliable because it has hull down capabilities, it has armor. I don't like that. I don't like the fact of auto-loading heavy tanks with 3000 DPM and virtually no downside. And that's kind of the M6 Yoh. It's still a very strong tank in every regard, and I think with the 3-shot, especially when it comes to decent players, it's kind of overpowered. I still think it's overpowered. So yeah, M6 Yoh, as it's actually performing, believe it or not, better than the 60 TP right now, and IS-7, should definitely get rid of the 3-shot, make the 2-shot viable. That's how I would do it. E6, one change, get rid of the hatch. It would be an absolutely amazing tank if you got rid of that hatch. And that's all you really need to do. Apart from that, leave it the same. T100 buff back to its original DPM. Make its top speed 40 kilometers per hour. Get rid of the stupid improved engine power speed boost. Get rid of the sandbag armor. Just make it a normal heavy. Give it 2500 hit points base. DPM obviously needs to be better. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, just make it go 40 kilometers per hour forward and leave everything else the same. I think it would be fine. Just get rid of the stupid consumables. There's something that gives you a temporary boost, and they've nerfed the vehicles around the consumables instead of nerfing or getting rid of them altogether. T100 same change as the E6. Remove that hatch, leave everything else the same. Wargaming buffed the cheeks on the turret, but that doesn't make a difference. All it needs to be is that hatch removed. Imagine this vehicle actually being viable in a frontline situation. I'd like to see that. So remove that hatch, all good. E3, I would actually leave the same. It's a really good tank. Maybe make its power to weight a bit better and remove the speed boost consumable. But apart from that, it's a really solid tank, and I really don't have any changes I would make towards it. Leopard 1, I would also leave exactly the same. Everything's great. Accuracy is amazing. Its penetration, I wouldn't change a thing about the Leopard 1. E50M, honestly, I wouldn't change anything either. Maybe make it a bit worse on the power to weight. I feel like this vehicle really breaks the lines between what is a medium tank and what is supposed to be a light tank. This thing can literally chase down vehicles like the Bosch Chatillon and Vickers Light as a medium. and it goes 60. It's not slow, so I just think that maybe nerf its power to weight a little bit, but apart from that, E50M is really solid at what it's currently sitting at. Mouse, give its hit points back to 3,200, leave everything else the same. Its gun's fine where it's at, its penetration's good. I just feel like, give it back its former glory of hit points, especially with what Wargaming's currently doing with the VK72. VK90, I'd leave the same. There's not much I'd change on this vehicle. E100, honestly, I wouldn't change it. Maybe make the turret a bit better. Just like 10 or 20 more millimeters on the turret armor to make it pretty hard to penetrate for medium tanks. That way, you don't just get buttered through. But apart from that, I think the E100 is really solid. It's got that big ol' alpha, and it's really solid. You know what? There's one thing I would change on the E100. I would make the track wheels stronger. This thing has some of the thickest tracks in the game. I mean, look at the sheer size of these tracks, yet they suck. Every time you shoot the E100 in the side, it always tracks the vehicle, even if you're in like a bat chat. Fix that. Make it so it doesn't get tracked on the first shot, and it gets tracked on the second shell. That way, you don't have to use your repair kit on something that you shouldn't really have to worry about in a massive super heavy that has track links the size of an entire country. VK72, I would make the side armor stronger. Ignore the changes that it's getting with tungsten. Ignore the hit point buffs. I don't think those should happen. All I think that should happen is the VK72 gets a side armor buff. This little boob on the side that's a really big weak spot, just make it like 300 thick. That way you can side scrape in the vehicle or just get rid of it altogether. Make the turret a bit more slim or just get rid of the boob. I really think that that's one of the big letdowns of this vehicle is the fact that it really wants to be able to side scrape, but it can't. It's so sad. So make it side scraping good and make everything else the same. And I think the VK72 would be absolutely fine. Even make the lower plate a bit weaker, make the side stronger. I just feel like it's a rear turreted tank and you just can't side scrape in it. It's kind of sad. Grille 15, make the camouflage better, make the DPM worse. Make it kind of like a waffle at tier 10. Maybe not as good, because we can all agree the waffle is kind of busted if you know what you're doing. But yeah, I think the Grille just needs to have like 32 or 3300 DPM, and that's with rammer. And then to counteract that, first of all, give it a little bit more heat pen. I don't know why the Grille has the worst HE pen at tier 10 for a 150, but it's 83. So buff that to 99 if you're running Cali. And as well, make the heat pen a bit better. But apart from that, I would honestly just make its camo better and make its DPM a bit worse. I think that'd be a really good change for the Grille 15. Jagdpanzer E100, leave it the same. I think it's fine where it's at. Again, do the same change as the E100, make the track links a bit better. But yeah, the Jagd's fine. It's got a really deadly gun. It's got pretty decent accuracy. I don't think it needs any changes in tier 10. T100 LT, nerf its DPM, nerf its penetration. Those are what I would change on it. This is a light tank that gets away with everything. It's got the armor of a medium tank. It's got the gun of a medium tank. But it's also got the camo of a light tank, the mobility of a light. It does everything. It's an overpowered tank. It's performing 300 more average damage right now than the T22 medium. So yeah, T100 LT I definitely think needs a nerf. First of all, make its DPM 3000, and that's with Cali. So like 3200 with rammer. As well, make its penetration much worse. Maybe like 280 or 270 on the premium. For any of you that are unaware, on World of Tanks PC, this tank has terrible DPM and absolutely terrible penetration. It's like 240 on the premium. No joke. It's terrible. Now, sure, it is AP, so it's like 260 or 270 effective, but you cannot penetrate E100 turrets. You can't penetrate haul-down heavies, rightfully so. It's a light. You're supposed to flank. So T100 LT, if you want to keep that spotting mechanic, make the gun worse. People are going to disagree with that, but it is definitely an overpowered tank, and if you disagree, it's just not true. T22 medium, honestly, I wouldn't change. I think over the years, it's been kind of power corrupt. Like, sure, it still has the really troll armor, but apart from that, it's a pretty solid tank. If you want one thing I would do to it, make that little hatch up here actually a cupola. If you don't know, that is just spaced armor. It doesn't actually exist as a weak spot. So make that a weak spot. Apart from that, T22 is fine. Object 140, I'd make the turret stronger. Not a lot stronger, but comparable to vehicles like the T62A and 907, where you can actually bounce a decent chunk of shells of standard ammo from high penetration rounds. So yeah, Object 140, I'd just buff the turret armor on. Everything else, leave the same. 62A, I would make it have 6 degrees of gun depression and leave everything else the same. The tank's already really solid. It's got everything going for it. I just feel like it should not have more gun depression than the Object 140. 907, leave it the same. Maybe make its accuracy a tad bit better. I think it's currently 0.326. Yeah, it is. Make it 0.317. Doesn't need to be much better, but I just feel like its gun should be a bit better for what it is. But yeah, 907's fantastic. Object 260, what would I change? First of all, make the turret armor better. In fact, make it reliable. Maybe not 5A levels of reliable, but make it so you have to load premium shells to penetrate this turret, and it's still tricky to penetrate. As well, make the gun depression 7 or even 8 degrees. The 260 can clearly fit a lot of gun depression, but it doesn't have it. If Wargaming wants to make this a mobile heavy tank with a really good gun but no armor, then give it something else. Make it have gun depression. That way you can actually make the armor somewhat decent haul down. Otherwise, make the hull armor stronger, make the turret stronger, and make it go a bit slower. Just pick your poison. Don't make it this heavy tank that doesn't do anything the role of a heavy, and it just kind of feels left in between. You know, I just feel like the 260's a tank that I would pull out if it had something going for it, but right now, all it has is the gun and the mobility. But why would I play this when I could go play an IS-4 if I wanted to play the heavy, or if I wanted to play a mobile tank with a really good gun and DPM and everything? Just play a 121. It's got more effective upper plate armor, it's got a stronger turret, it's got more DPM, it's got better accuracy. Why would I ever play this tank over a WZ-121? Yeah, hit points, oh, big whoop, you get shot once and you're at the same HP. I really don't feel like there's many advantages, so it needs something extra. It needs something. The IS-7, nerf the side armor. This little stupid bar here, I'll even put on display capture. This bar here needs to be nerfed. You need to be able to penetrate through that. The fact that medium tanks and others cannot penetrate the side armor is absolutely stupid. The frontal armor can stay the same. Buff the premium ammo as well. Make the premium 320 millimeters on the APCR instead of 318, or make it 330. I think more pen is fine for this vehicle. It should be able to contest other heavies on penetrating their weak spots, but make the side armor worse. It's so stupid, the fact that this thing has sides that are made out of literal stellinium. So yeah, please nerf the IS-7 side armor. It's stupid how troll it is. The IS-4, honestly, there's only one change I would make to it, and that is the weak spot on the side. There's a very, very big weak spot, and for any of you that don't know about this weak spot, in a side-scraping IS-4, there's a thin bar that's kind of like this here. You can see like it kind of makes up, but this thin bar cuts off about here. You can pen that with like any gun in tier 9 or tier 10 and very easily pen it when it's side scraping. That really shouldn't be a weak spot, and I don't know why it is one. Apart from that, the vehicle's fine. It's got a decent gun. Everything's fine with it. I just feel like, yeah, the IS-4 should have that weak spot removed, especially with vehicles like the IS-7 right now that literally have an angled lower glacis plate and as well and stupid side armor that bounces everything. So yeah, I definitely make that side armor just a tad bit better on the IS-4, but apart from that, really solid tank. I wouldn't make any changes to it. Object 268, fine where it's at, wouldn't make any changes. Object 263, yeah, I wouldn't make any changes to either. It's really solid. Really, if there's only one thing I would do, is maybe make this engine deck just a bit stronger. Like, the tank's really good right now, but I hate the fact in a face hug that just the engine deck gets penned every time. I think it'd still be fine if you can penetrate this bar right here. That would still be fine with me. But I hate the fact that just anything that you're in a face hug with can penetrate the engine deck. So make it maybe 20 or 30 millimeters stronger. Nothing insane, but, you know, something that at least can withstand shells a bit better. Vickers Light, honestly, I wouldn't change much on. Right now, I think it's pretty decent in the meta. What I would change is the upper plate. Make it a lesser angle. You can keep the armor thickness the same, but maybe bring up the frontal armor a bit more. I can bring up display capture. Maybe stretch this just a bit more up like here, so the upper plate's a bit less angled. And the reason why is because when you're actually fully hull down in the Vickers Light, it's more like a medium. It actually bounces shells. That should not be the case. Also make the turret a bit weaker. I don't understand that. I'd also do that for the T100 LT, by the way. Make the turret weaker. The fact that the turret gets so many bounces makes no sense. But yeah, light tanks should not be bouncing shells. The Sheridan, I actually think, is a pretty good barometer of a light tank. It doesn't bounce a lot of shells. It has a very weak turret. It's got a very weak hull. Yes, it's got troll armor, but it's not hard to penetrate as long as you know how to aim at it. I feel like that's how light tanks should be based in Blitz, not with actual armor. T100 LT's hull I'll let slide because it's super angled, but Vickers Light, nah, it should not be so strong. I feel like the hull should be a bit weaker. If you want to counteract that, maybe make the dispersion on the gun a bit better. Instead of 0.326, make the dispersion 0.3 or 0.308. So that's just how I feel the Vickers Light, but let me know. That one's a bit of a weird one, I feel. FE4202, I would do one change to it, and it's a big change. I would give it the Hesh and Heat Gun. There was a time in Blitz when the FE4202 had heat shells and Hesh, and that's what I would give it. That's all I would give it. Just combine both of these guns, give it HE with 230 millimeters of pen, but as well give it heat shells with 330 millimeters of heat pen. That way, it can not only penetrate opponents that it needs to, but it can also use the HE on anything it needs to. I feel like that would make the tank so much more viable in a lot of situations. Yes, I know the whole point of the Hesh gun is to make sacrifices, but nah, I just feel like in the current meta of Blitz, you need pen for certain vehicles like the 60 TP. And yeah, I'd really like to see the FE4202 back in its former glory days. If you don't want to do that, then let's just give it more turret armor. Make the turret stronger, that it can actually bounce a decent chunk of shells, that you need to load heat to pen. The fact that the turret's so weak kind of makes me sad. Maybe nerf the hull, make the turret stronger. I feel like that would be a good balance, but let me know. FE2 and 5B, I would, first of all, make the side armor better. I would make it much better. The ability to side scrape, like a heavy tank. As well, I would make the upper plate better. The fact that heat shells can butter through the upper plate makes no sense to me. Make the upper plate maybe 20, 30 millimeters stronger. Make the sides 50 millimeters stronger. I want to see this thing actually be able to side scrape. And apart from that, I honestly wouldn't change it. Yes, I know, the DPM should be better. But if you want the 2 and 5B to actually play like a heavy tank, I feel like the gun shouldn't have 3000 DPM as well. I would much rather have this play like a heavy, an actual heavy, because we already know the Super Conqueror is not going to replace it. So yeah, make the FE2 and 5B an actual heavy tank, and that's all I would do to it. Make it heavily armored. Chieftain Mark 6, I wouldn't change. I would actually just make the turret a bit stronger. I feel like this vehicle over the years has become a bit weaker on the turret. So yeah, just make the roof of the turret a bit stronger, because heat shells can kind of butter through it if you have enough pen. So yeah, that's what I would do to that. Super Conqueror. I cannot tell you how irritating it is to have people HE this tank and completely demolish it with HE shells. I would completely mitigate the HE damage done to this vehicle. It literally has spaced armor on it. Why does it have spaced armor on the turret if it doesn't do anything? Make the spaced armor thicker and make the HE that hits this tank deal 30% less damage, because it's really annoying for a vehicle like an E5 or the 120 to shoot HE and deal 200 damage. It makes no sense, and I would definitely change that. The 183, I've said this before, remove it from the game. I would make the Badger tech tree, refund people for the money they've spent on it. Obviously, they wouldn't do that, but I just hate the fact that the 183 exists in the game. It's toxic. There's only one reason people play, and that is to ruin other people's days. You personally know that if you are driving a 183, you are not giving your team any advantage. The best players in the game cannot do well in a 183. You will do terrible in it because it's all based on luck. This is one of the only few tanks in the game I will actually say RNG is dependent on. The annoying thing is that when you get a player on your team that drives the 183 and the enemy team doesn't have a 183 on their side, it sucks because your 183 usually bots out, gets one shell out if he's lucky, doesn't pen it, and dies. It's happened so many times. 183s do 0 damage. It's the most useless tank you can get on a team. And then the enemy 183 will deal 3,500 damage because it gets lucky and pens its shots, and your team is a bunch of bots. The 183 is a tank that should not exist in the game. It is not skill-based. It is luck-based. You're only driving it to ruin somebody else's day. You know you're screwing your team over. You know you're screwing somebody else's day over on the enemy team. You don't care when you drive it. Tanks should have repercussions for doing bad in them. And the 183's repercussion is, oh well, I did bad in a tank that everybody does bad in. Get rid of it. Other than that, I can't really say much of a change I would do to it, just because it's just a toxic tank. There's really no changes. Like the 4005, I would leave the same. I think the 4005 is really well balanced because of everything it has going for it. But the 183, just the fact that it gets all that damage out in one shell, man, I hate that. The FE2 and 7 Badger, I would make the side armor really strong. I've thought hard and long about what I would do to the Badger. There's two changes. First of all, make the gun very accurate on move. This is not a fast tank. It has a top speed of 35, yet its gun is incredibly inaccurate whenever it turns its tank or tries to snap shells. Make its aiming time better, or make its on-movement dispersion better. Either of those, and I'm fine with it. The other thing I would change on the Badger, and this is a weird change, but hear me out. Make the side, this little bit here, let me go put on display capture. Make this bit of armor here like 250 thick. And why would I do that? Well, I can't tell you how many times vehicles just get like a slight edge of your tank like this and butter right through the side of it. I don't like that. I mean, yes, I think heat shells could still penetrate it at 250 at that angle, but I'd like to see it so that at any angle when you're dealing with more than one opponent. You don't just get buttered through on the side armor. I would really like to see it a bit stronger when you're trying to work hull down. So yeah, make the sides 250 right on that little angled bit instead of the 120 or whatever it is right now. STB1, I would leave exactly the same. I think it's a great tank. The only change I would make to it is the side armor, make it weaker. The sides right now on the STB1 are actually pretty decent at 75 millimeters thick. I think they should be back to what they used to be, which was 50 millimeters. That way, HE shells can penetrate the vehicle side. I feel like that would really make repercussions for not using it in its native environment, which is hull down. It's a hull down tank. It should be used hull down, and I think the side should be weaker to make people understand how it should be played. The Hori, I would nerf its accuracy on move. It's way too accurate on the move. And as well, I would remove maybe 20 millimeters of premium and standard penetration. Apart from that, I think the vehicle's fine. It's just really annoying to deal with, and I feel like if it had a bit less pen and a bit less accuracy, it wouldn't be as strong. Anybody that drives the Hori just knows exactly what I'm talking about and why it's such a stupid tank. WZ121, I leave the same. I think it's a great tank. It's got good armor, really solid things going for it. The only thing I'd change is maybe make the ammo rack just a bit stronger. 121B, I'd leave the same. Nothing wrong with this vehicle. 5A, there's a couple changes I've thought about over the years. Obviously, the 5A is one of my most played tanks in the game. In fact, I have over 1,000 battles in it. It's one of my most played tanks. And obviously, when I've played that many battles in it, I know a thing or two about this tank, what it struggles with. There's two possible changes that Wargaming can do. The first one, which makes sense, is make it more of a heavy. The 5A is supposed to be the more heavily version of the 113. So, if you're going to do that, the first option is make the upper plate strong. Make it like an IS-7's upper plate, where you actually have to load premium to pen it. Make the lower plate a bit thicker. I think that would be a good change. As well, give it more hit points. Make it the same as the IS-7 at 2650. Because it's supposed to be more heavily armored, why does it have the same hit points as a Mark 6? So that's the first option, is make it more heavily armored, make it better at using its armor in general. The second change that Wargaming could do is make it more viable with the gun. It's already got a great turret. It's already got great hull down capabilities. It's kind of like a 260, but it can actually work situations. But if you're going to make it a very solid tank for hull down capabilities, but take its armor away, give it a better gun. On PC, the 5A has a fantastic gun. It's got equivalent to Blitz about 3,000 DPM. Make the gun have 2,800 DPM in Blitz base, so that way if you're running Cali, you have 2,800, and if you're running Rammer, it has 3,000. Those are the two options I have. I think that either of those would be really solid for the tank. It would make it super strong. But I don't think Wargaming would ever do that because they just don't seem to care about old collectors in the game. They just kind of let them run away. WZ113, some people are going to disagree with this. A lot of people are going to agree. What is the 113's major downside? It's something I talk about in every video. It's the traverse speed. It's absolutely abhorrent. I hate the fact that medium tanks and really anything that get a slight advantage of your side, or any player that's decently smart can get to the side of your tank, they just kind of make your day a living hell. Make the sides traverse speed much better. I would say make it more like an IS-7, more mobile. You know, the fact that it can traverse. To counteract that, make the DPM worse. Take away its alpha from 420 to 400 like it used to be, and give it about 3,000 DPM. So it loses DPM, but it gains traverse speed, making it more enjoyable for everybody to drive it. Not everybody's going to agree with that, but I do feel like that would be a really, really enjoyable change to the 113, and it would make me really want to drive the tank more. WZ113 GFT, leave it the same. It's a fine tank. It's great. It's honestly really fun to drive. Maybe just make the camo a bit better, but apart from that, really solid. Boss Shotdown 25 ton. What would I do? Well, there's two possible changes that I've talked about. Now, if we're talking about strictly balancing the tank, I would make the interclip 2.5 or 2.4 seconds, making it much better of clipping damage. I would make its accuracy better, because it's supposed to be a decently accurate tank, but it's not. I mean, it's 0.293, but that's because I'm running refined. Normally, it's like, what, 0.3 something? Yeah, 0.326, that's really bad. Make its accuracy better. Make its accuracy base 0.308. That would make it really fun. Other opportunities they could do is make the alpha 350 on the clip instead of 310. Make its HEs better. There's a lot of things Wargaming could do, but I hope that they do one of those. It definitely needs something. The other opportunity, which I've talked about before, is make the Bastione a medium. Give it a 4-shell gun, kind of like the TVP. Give it 310 damage per shot, or even 350. Give it a massive clip reload. Make it a medium. That is just like the one on PC. As well, what I would like to see done is then make the AMX 13105 a tier 10 light. What Wargaming's probably going to end up doing is they'll make it a premium in Blitz, but I'd really like to see the 13105 replace the Boss Shotgun, give it a 3-shell, 350 alpha gun with a 2.5 second archer clip. It would be just like an AMX 1390, but with 350 alpha. Just imagine that at tier 10. That's what the 13105 is. Really fun looking tank, super solid tank on PC, and I'd really like to see that happen in Blitz. The AMX 30B, there's one single change. Give it more DPM. It's already very accurate, it's already got great mobility, and a turret that can do the job. But it just doesn't have the DPM to keep up with the other tier 10 mediums. It now has like the worst DPM apart from autoloaders in tier 10. It's got a 2829, which is really bad for a medium. Even the STB is over 3000. Give it about 3200 base DPM. If you're running rammer, it's up to 3400. This tank is based off of the Leopard 1 in real life, and it's got pretty similar armor and blitz to the Leopard 1. All it has in return is a better turret, but it's got a worse gun on accuracy and everything else. So make its gun about 200, 250 less DPM than the Leopard 1, make it less accurate as it already is, and just give it more DPM. That's all it really needs. It's already a fine tank on every other regard. It's just left behind on the DPM because Wargaming keeps on buffing other tanks. The AMX 50B, nerf its turret armor. Everything else can stay the same. I don't know why Wargaming made the turret troll on this vehicle, but that shouldn't be the case. Other than that, yeah, 50B's fine. AMX M454, I wouldn't change a thing about it. Maybe make the gun a bit less accurate for a 130, but yeah, other than that, it's a really solid tank, and there's really nothing I'd change on it. Next up, we have the Fush 155. Two changes I'd make to this vehicle. First of all, the single shot gun. Give it 640 alpha. I don't know why it doesn't have 640 alpha. It's a 155mm armament, and it sits at 560. Make it 640, make the HE 960, and I would 100% use this gun. Apart from that, the second gun, which is the 560 gun, I would make it 640 alpha on the gun, just like the single shot, but I would make the intra clip a bit longer at maybe 8 seconds. And as well, I would give it bad HE alpha. So it does 640 on the standard and 780 on the premium. I think that, or HE. I think that would be fine. I would like to see the tank like that. Obviously, keep the DPM the same, but I just feel like the Foss should be a 155mm. It should have that alpha, or just remove the autoloading gun altogether. The Progetto 65, as I've said in my videos, I would just make the gun a bit more accurate. Apart from that, the tank's already fine. It's a great vehicle. So yeah, just make the accuracy a bit better, maybe the shell velocity a bit better, and I think the tank would be amazing. TVP needs no changes. It's an amazing tank. I wouldn't change a thing on it. 60 TP, I would make it no tungsten, and that's really all I do. Maybe get rid of the gear oil, get rid of the gunpowder, and I think the tank would be fine. It's already a decent vehicle as it is. So yeah, 60 TP, leave it the same. Kranvong, I would give it much, much more traverse, and I would give it 40 kilometers per hour top speed. The Kron is obviously limited by its damage per minute. Yes, it does have really good DPM if you use the clip and then use it as a single shot, but mobility would not change the effectiveness of its DPM. Being able to reposition is just something that's nice, and it makes you a bit more influential in the game of just being a heavy tank. Heavies still need some mobility, 60 TP, IS4, IS7. A lot of the heavies in tier 10 aren't actually that slow unless you're looking at super heavies. But the Kranvong is not a super heavy. It weighs literally 44 tons. It's incredibly light. I mean, look at vehicles like the Kron on PC. It goes 50 or maybe even 60 kilometers per hour. It's incredibly fast. So it should go 40 in Blitz. I think the turret traverse would be a bit better, and other than that, leave it the same. These are the changes I would make in tier 10. There's a lot of changes. This is a 35-minute video, but I thought that I would list them all. Obviously, there are going to be disagreements here and there. If you disagree, let me know why you disagree in the comments down below. Don't just say, oh, Droodles, you're wrong. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, please let me know why. But yeah, I just thought I would talk about the changes I would make. If you'd like to see this done on tier 9, tier 8, tier 7, let me know. But other than that, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.